Many people never notice the moment when a silent goodbye becomes a breaking point. Sometimes one step away from someone changes everything they believed about their bond. The truth appears when a person walks toward the exit carrying unspoken pain. Part 1 begins on a night that did not look dramatic to anyone else, yet it held a weight heavy enough to shift two intertwined lives. The city lights softened the sky, the streets hummed with distant movement, and the quiet stillness inside Sandra's home carried a kind of loneliness she had not admitted even to herself. She stood at her window with her arms folded, thinking about the strange distance that had grown between her and Keanu during the last months. She did not tell anyone about the pressure inside her heart, or how she struggled to understand why every conversation felt slightly colder than the one before. She only knew she could not continue pretending that everything felt normal. She stared at her packed suitcase in the corner. The decision had not come suddenly. It formed slowly like a cloud building before a storm. She had spent several nights lying awake, wondering if she was expecting too much from Keanu or if he had already quietly stepped away from her life. She feared forcing answers, so she chose the one path that felt less chaotic. She booked a quiet one-way flight to another city, not because she wanted to leave forever, but because she needed space to breathe and understand what her heart still wanted. She whispered to herself that she would tell him eventually, maybe weeks later, maybe after she settled her thoughts. She convinced herself he would not notice her absence immediately. She told herself he had his own world, his own commitments, his own way of walking through life with gentle calmness and careful distance. She believed leaving quietly would protect both of them from unnecessary conflict. Yet as she pressed her palm against the suitcase handle, a strange sadness rushed through her chest like a wave breaking against rock. She checked the time again and forced herself to move. She grabbed her phone and saw no message from him, which made her feel both relieved and strangely disappointed. She walked out of her home with slow steps, her heart heavy, her breathing unsteady. She thought about the conversations they had shared in the past, all the moments when they laughed about ordinary things, the rare moments when they opened up about their fears. She wondered if he ever thought about those times the way she did. Meanwhile, miles away, Keanu sat in his quiet living room reading through a script he had received earlier that day. He was focused but unsettled, unable to ignore the feeling that something felt slightly off. He kept putting the script down and picking it up again, trying to regain his concentration. After a while, he sighed and set it aside completely. He reached for his phone, thinking about sending Sandra a simple message asking how her day had been. He hesitated because he did not want to feel clingy or intrusive. He respected her space more than anything else. He knew she valued independence, and he admired that about her. But something tugged at him quietly, something soft, something almost instinctive. He typed a short message, deleted it, typed another, deleted it again. He laughed at himself because it felt strange to overthink something so simple. He finally sent a message asking if she had dinner and if she wanted to talk later. It was gentle and casual. He did not notice at first that her phone was already on silent inside her bag as she rode in the car toward the airport. He waited for her reply while sipping tea, unaware that her silence had a different meaning this time. He stood and stretched, trying to shake off the feeling, but the discomfort in his chest grew stronger. He walked around his home, restless and uncertain. A few minutes later, he glanced at his phone again, expecting the screen to remain blank, but this time something unexpected appeared. It was a message from a mutual friend checking on him. The message mentioned that Sandra had told her she needed time away for a while. Keanu reread the message slowly. His hand tightened around the phone. He felt the air inside the room shift instantly. He tried to understand the meaning behind those words, time away, for a while. He whispered the words under his breath, trying to steady himself. He felt a sudden urgency building inside his chest. He dialed Sandra's number. It rang without answer. He tried again, still nothing. He pressed his palm against his forehead as he tried to think clearly. He scrolled through his phone looking for familiar signs of her recent activity. Nothing. Then he remembered the way she sounded 2 days ago when they spoke briefly. Her voice had been softer, like she was carrying something heavy. He asked if she was all right, and she answered with a smile he could not see but could feel. Yet he sensed the strain. He dismissed it at the time. Now he regretted ignoring that instinct. In that moment, he felt something inside him shift. He grabbed his jacket, rushed out of his home, and moved quickly toward his car. He did not know where she was going, but something told him it was urgent. He drove through the night with his hands trembling slightly on the steering wheel. He kept calling her, hoping she would answer even once, hoping he could ask her what she needed, hoping he could tell her that leaving quietly would break him in ways he could not fully control. Sandra reached the airport entrance and stepped out of the car. The cold breeze brushed her face and made her shiver. She adjusted her coat and pulled her suitcase behind her as she walked inside the bright terminal. People moved around her with calm purpose, but she felt disconnected from everything. As she stood in line at the check-in counter, she thought again about Keanu. She imagined what he would say if he knew she was leaving without telling him. She imagined him standing behind her, asking her softly not to go. She imagined him saying something that would make her stay. But those were just thoughts, just dreams shaped by emotion. She checked her phone one last time before turning it off to avoid distractions. She saw several missed calls. Her breath caught in her throat. She saw his name. Her fingers shook slightly as she held the phone. She knew she could call him back and explain everything. She knew he deserved that, but fear wrapped around her heart tightly. She needed space, she told herself again. She needed time. She turned the phone off completely and placed it back into her bag. Keanu parked near the airport and ran toward the entrance without thinking about anything except finding her. He moved through the crowd with urgency, nearly stumbling as he rushed past people. The bright lights reflected off the polished floor and made everything feel sharper. He searched the terminal with frantic eyes, scanning every line, every face, every corner. He did not know which airline she chose, which gate she would walk toward, or how much time he had before she disappeared. He whispered her name under his breath like a prayer. His heart pounded so hard that it felt painful. He knew he did not chase people. He respected distance. He respected choices. He respected silence. But losing her without trying felt impossible. Something inside him refused to let her walk away without hearing the truth he had kept hidden far too long. He approached the information desk, trying to ask for help, but he had no details to offer. The attendant shook her head gently. He thanked her and moved away, feeling his anxiety tighten. He pulled out his phone, hoping she might turn hers on again, hoping for any sign. There was none. Sandra reached the security line and waited silently. Her heart felt heavy, but she kept her posture steady. She thought about the memories she shared with Keanu over the years. Moments of kindness, moments of laughter, moments when his quiet nature brought her peace she did not know she needed. She wondered if she was doing the right thing. She wondered if he felt the same distance she felt. She wondered if leaving would hurt him more than she expected. Then something happened that made her chest tighten. A voice echoed faintly through the airport. It was not loud, but it was familiar in a way that made her heartbeat stop for a moment. She turned slightly, unsure if she imagined it. She heard it again. It was his voice calling her name. Keanu saw her before she saw him. She was standing near the security barrier, her suitcase beside her, her head lowered slightly as she waited in line. He froze for a second as relief washed over him, making his knees feel weak. He walked toward her quickly, almost running, unable to control the rush of emotion inside him. People turned to look at him because his urgency showed clearly on his face. When Sandra finally looked up and saw him, her breath caught in her throat. She felt her body go still. She could see the panic in his eyes, the pain, the confusion. She stepped out of the line slowly and moved toward him, her hands shaking, her heart pounding. He reached her and stopped just a few steps away, trying to catch his breath. Neither of them spoke for a moment. He looked into her eyes with a mixture of fear and relief, and she felt her own emotions rise like a storm she could no longer control. "Why are you leaving like this?" he whispered with a trembling voice as he fought to steady himself. Sandra looked down for a second, then back at him with eyes full of hidden emotion. She opened her mouth to respond, but the words formed painfully and slowly. And just as she was about to answer, the announcement speaker called her flight for final boarding. The sound broke through the moment like a sudden crack. Keanu's expression changed instantly. Sandra inhaled sharply, and before she could speak the words she had been holding inside her chest for months, something even more shocking happened. Some moments arrive without warning and change the meaning of everything spoken. A single announcement can push a person to face hidden truth. The heart speaks loudly when time begins slipping away too fast. The airport noise faded around them as if the world paused just for their breath to settle. Sandra stood with her hands trembling near her suitcase, and Keanu watched her with a look so vulnerable that she felt her entire decision folding under its weight. She wished she could explain everything she had been fighting inside, but the words locked themselves deep in her throat. She knew she had to speak, yet her voice refused to cooperate. The announcement echoed again, firmer this time, calling all remaining passengers for final boarding. The tension between them tightened into something fragile and painful. Sandra could feel her pulse rising, and every sound in the terminal suddenly felt sharper. Her mind raced, trying to choose between what she thought she needed and what her heart begged her to reconsider. Keanu took a step closer, his breath unsteady, his voice so soft it almost disappeared under the echoing airport sounds. "Please tell me why you did not tell me anything," he said. "I have been calling you for the last hour thinking something terrible happened." He paused for a second, and his voice broke slightly. "I thought I lost you without even understanding why." His honesty pierced her deeply. She swallowed hard and lowered her eyes. She wanted to tell him she felt unheard, unseen, and quietly pushed aside without meaning to accuse him of anything. She wanted to tell him she needed time to collect herself, not time to leave him forever. But the fear of sounding unreasonable made her freeze. She finally whispered, "I just needed space. I needed to clear my head." Her voice trembled as she said it, and something in Keanu's expression changed. He did not step back, but he looked hurt, like the words carried a deeper rejection than she intended. "Space from what?" he asked gently. "From me." She closed her eyes for a moment, fighting the sting inside her chest. She wanted to answer, but before she could form a full sentence, a rushing group of passengers hurried past them toward the gate, breaking the moment. The sudden movement made Sandra take a small step back. Keanu noticed the step, and even though it was tiny, even though it was not meant to push him away, it pierced him instantly. "Sandra," he whispered, his voice almost shaking, "did I do something wrong?" She looked up at him again, and her eyes filled with a sadness he had never seen in her before. "No," she said softly, "you did not do anything wrong. I felt like I was losing myself." She pressed her lips together before continuing. "And I did not know how to tell you that without sounding dramatic." He shook his head gently. "You are not dramatic for feeling something. You are not dramatic for needing clarity. You are not dramatic for wanting answers." He exhaled deeply. "But leaving without telling me, that felt like losing the chance to even try to understand you." His honesty made her chest tighten in a painful way. She felt guilty. She felt relieved. She felt overwhelmed all at once. She looked away, unable to meet his eyes for a moment because the intensity inside them made her feel exposed. The final boarding announcement echoed again, sharper than before, and the tension between them grew heavier. The future felt like a thin thread stretched between two trembling hands. Sandra finally spoke with a quiet voice. "I did not want to burden you with my confusion. You already have so much on your shoulders. I did not want to add my feelings to that weight." Keanu stared at her for a long moment, trying to steady the storm inside his chest. "Your feelings are not a burden," he said. "They never were. They never will be." She felt tears forming, but she blinked them away quickly. She hated crying in public, especially during moments that felt so fragile. She pressed her fingertips against her forehead for a second, trying to breathe. She felt torn between her instinct to stay and the plan she had made to leave. Keanu felt panic rising because the gate agent started closing the barrier for her flight. He could not bring himself to hold her physically, but the urge to reach out grew stronger than anything he had felt before. He took another step closer and lowered his voice further. "I am asking you to stay," he whispered. "Just talk to me. Give us one conversation before you go." His plea was not dramatic. It was not demanding. It was simply raw truth. And that truth shook her deeply because she could feel the sincerity in every word he spoke. But she also carried her own truth, a truth shaped by months of quiet internal storms. She finally whispered, "I do not know if staying will fix anything." The words hit him like a sudden cold wave. He blinked slowly, moved his gaze away for a second, then looked back at her with a restraint that looked painfully fragile. "Maybe we do not need to fix everything today," he said softly. "Maybe we only need to understand what is happening inside you." Sandra tightened her grip on the suitcase handle, her breathing growing uneven. "I felt like I was fading," she said. "I felt like my voice was becoming smaller every time we talked. I did not want to blame you for that. I just wanted to find myself again." Keanu's heart tightened at her confession. He stepped closer but still left enough space for her comfort. "I had no idea," he whispered. "I thought I was giving you peace by keeping distance. I thought you needed quiet. I never imagined it was making you feel invisible." She looked up sharply, surprised by his interpretation. "You were not wrong," she said. "I did need quiet, but I also needed presence, and I did not know how to ask for it without sounding confused." Keanu exhaled slowly. "You could have told me," he said. "I would have listened. I would have done anything to meet you halfway." She knew he meant it. She felt it deeply. but her fear of being misunderstood had been stronger than her courage to speak. The gate agent called out, "Final passenger for this flight, please come forward." The voice cut through them like a blade. Sandra looked toward the gate. The agent was closing the last section of the barrier. She felt her heart pounding with painful urgency. She looked back at Keanu with eyes that carried both love and fear. Keanu felt something crack inside him. He saw her hesitation. He saw her conflict. He saw everything she tried to hide behind calmness. And for the first time, he understood how close he had been to losing her quietly, painfully, without any final chance to speak truth. He took a step closer, barely a breath away from her. "If you walk through that gate," he whispered, "I will respect it. I will not chase you. I will not interfere. I will not appear in front of you unless you want me to." She closed her eyes tightly, her tears threatening to escape. He continued, "But before you go, I need to ask you something that I should have asked long ago." He paused, collecting his courage. "Do you still want me in your life?" The question stunned her. It was not possessive. It was not demanding. It was simply honest. Raw. Vulnerable. She opened her eyes and looked at him with a pain she could no longer hide. The terminal lights reflected in her eyes, making them shine with emotion she had buried for weeks. She inhaled shakily, ready to answer. But then something unexpected happened. A young man rushing past accidentally bumped into her suitcase, causing her to lose her balance for a moment. Keanu instinctively grabbed her arm to steady her. The sudden contact made both of them freeze. Sandra felt the warmth of his grip, the sincerity of his concern, and something inside her broke open. She slowly pulled her arm back but did not step away. "I never wanted to lose you," she whispered. "I just wanted to understand us." Keanu's breath caught. "Then stay," he whispered. "Let us understand together." She looked at him with trembling conflict written across her face. "I am scared," she said. "So am I," he replied softly. The gate agent called out once more, "This is the final call. The doors are closing." Keanu did not move. Sandra did not move. Time felt suspended. And then Sandra finally parted her lips to give him the answer he had waited for. The answer that would change everything. The answer that would either mend their connection or break it completely. But before she could speak, a voice echoed behind them. A voice they both recognized. A voice that should not have been there. They turned at the same time, and what they saw stopped both of their hearts. A single voice can reopen wounds a person believed were healing slowly. Unexpected arrivals often reveal truths hidden behind controlled silence. The heart shakes most when the past stands suddenly in front of it. Sandra and Keanu turned together, startled by the sudden interruption of a moment already stretched thin with emotion. Their breath caught at the same time because the last person they expected to see at that airport stood only a few steps away, watching them with a quiet seriousness that changed the energy in an instant. It was an assistant from Sandra's agency, someone close enough to know parts of her life, yet distant enough to avoid emotional involvement. But the look on his face was not casual or routine. He approached with cautious steps, carrying a small folder in one hand and concern written across his expression. Sandra felt her heartbeat shift sharply, sensing this encounter was not random. Keanu glanced between the two, trying to assess what had caused this disruption. Sandra's agency assistant paused before speaking, looking almost uneasy. "I have been looking for you," he said quietly. "I tried to reach you earlier, but your phone was off." He held the folder a little tighter. "There is something you need to know before you leave." Sandra's eyes widened. She had not told the agency she was traveling. She did not expect anyone to follow her. Her voice remained low when she responded, "What is it?" She did not hide her confusion or her growing fear. The assistant glanced at Keanu with a respectful nod before returning his gaze to Sandra. "I would not have come here if it was not important," he said. "Something came in for you a couple hours ago. Your manager wanted you to see it immediately." Sandra's stomach tightened with anxiety. "What is inside the folder?" she asked. The assistant hesitated. His hesitation alone made her chest feel heavy. Finally, with controlled breath, he handed her the folder. "It is related to the project you were considering last month. The director sent something urgent. You need to read it before making any major decisions, especially before leaving the city." Sandra did not move for a few seconds. She held the folder but did not open it. The airport lights seemed brighter than before, and the growing awareness of time slipping away made her feel faintly overwhelmed. She looked at Keanu and saw concern deepening in his eyes. He did not speak, but his presence offered her a silent grounding she desperately needed. She finally opened the folder with trembling fingers. Inside, she found a printed letter with the director's name at the top, along with several notes and highlighted paragraphs. She read the first few lines, and her expression changed immediately. Keanu stepped closer, trying to read her reaction. Her eyes moved quickly across the text, her breath growing shallow with every sentence. She reached the middle of the paragraph, and her hand shook suddenly. Keanu instinctively reached out but stopped himself an inch away from touching her, unsure if it would comfort or overwhelm her further. "Sandra," he whispered, "what does it say?" She swallowed hard. "The director changed the terms," she said quietly. "He wants me to join the project sooner than planned. He wants commitment starting next week, and he made changes to the roles." Keanu frowned. "What kind of changes?" She looked down at the letter again, her voice barely audible. "He mentioned that the emotional dynamic of the project depends on strong chemistry between the leads, and because of public expectations, he wants—" She stopped, unable to finish. Keanu felt a strange uneasiness grow in his chest. "He wants what?" he asked gently. She looked up with hollow eyes. "He wants us both," she said. Keanu felt heat rush through his face in shock. "Me," he repeated quietly. The assistant nodded. "Yes. The director believes the project needs you two together because the audience trusts your emotional connection. He said the bond you share on screen is unmatched and essential to the story's authenticity." Sandra felt even more conflicted. She had left her home to escape confusion, not deepen it. Now the universe placed another complicated decision directly in her path. Keanu stared at the floor for a moment, trying to process this sudden turn. Sandra watched him carefully, knowing this twist would make everything between them more complicated. The assistant spoke again. "The director left a note saying he hopes you do not make any sudden moves before considering this. He thinks the project could be a major step for you both." Sandra exhaled deeply, overwhelmed. Keanu watched her closely. He could see the pressure inside her, the fear, the weight, the emotional chaos. He stepped closer. "This is not something you have to decide right now," he said softly. "And this is not a reason to leave or stay. This is just work. Your heart decision should not depend on a contract." She nodded slowly. "I know, but everything feels heavier now." The assistant added gently, "I can tell your manager you received the letter. The decision is yours. I only came because she did not want you to leave without seeing it." Sandra thanked him quietly. He nodded and stepped aside, giving them space again. Keanu turned back to her. "Look at me for a second," he said softly. She lifted her eyes to his. The terminal sounds faded again, replaced by the quiet intensity between them. "Are you leaving because of me?" he asked gently. "Or because of fear inside your own heart?" The question hit her hard. She swallowed painfully. "Both," she whispered. Keanu nodded slowly, accepting her honesty. "I understand, but if fear is guiding you, then running will not silence it. It will only follow you to another city." Her lips trembled. She felt the truth in his words, yet she still felt unsure about staying. Everything inside her felt tangled and tense. A group of passengers walked past them toward another gate, their footsteps echoing across the terminal floor. Sandra watched them for a moment, wondering if she should have been among them, walking forward without turning back. But her heart felt pulled in two directions at once. Keanu continued speaking gently. "Sandra, tell me honestly, do you want to leave because you feel invisible with me?" The question made her eyes fill instantly. She answered with a soft whisper, "I felt like your silence grew deeper every week, and I did not know if it meant you lost interest in our connection." Keanu closed his eyes briefly, guilt washing over him. "That was never the reason," he said. "My silence was not distance, it was fear." Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "Fear of what?" He took a slow breath. "Fear of needing you too much," he said. "Fear of saying something you were not ready to hear. Fear of crossing your boundaries. Fear of making you think I wanted more than you wanted." Sandra felt her chest tighten with emotion. "You always care about boundaries," she whispered. "Yes," he replied. "And sometimes I care so much that I stop myself from showing what I actually feel." She blinked, shaken by the honesty she had been craving for so long. "I did not know that," she said. He nodded with a sad smile. "I never expected you to understand something I never said." Silence settled between them, gentle but charged. She whispered, "I was scared too." "I know," he replied, "but you do not have to walk away without letting me stand beside your fear." Her lips parted, but she could not form words. Just then the assistant returned with an apologetic expression. "I am sorry to interrupt again," he said carefully, "but they are closing the doors. You must choose now." Sandra's heart raced with painful urgency. She looked between the gate and Keanu. Tears filled her eyes as she realized how close she was to losing something she never fully understood but deeply valued. Keanu stepped closer, his voice steady but tender. "I will not force your choice," he said, "but I will walk with you if you let me. Even if you choose to leave, I will help you reach clarity, but please do not leave without telling me if there is still a place for me in your life." She inhaled deeply, her chest trembling. "There is," she whispered. "There always was." He closed his eyes for a moment in relief, but the pain remained. "Then stay," he said gently. "Stay tonight, talk with me, let us understand this together." The gate agent made the final closure announcement, her voice firm and final. Sandra felt frozen, her suitcase handle dug into her palm from how tightly she held it. Her emotions swirled in chaos. The letter, the project, Keanu's confession, and her own fears all collided inside her at once. She whispered with breaking breath, "I do not know what to do." Keanu looked at her with heartbreaking softness. "Then let me help you breathe until you do." For a moment, it felt like she would drop the suitcase and walk back into his arms. But then, something unexpected happened. Her phone, still powered off, suddenly vibrated inside her bag as if the universe forced a message through despite the dead screen. Sandra froze, shocked. Keanu's eyes widened. The assistant stared, confused. She slowly reached into her bag, pulled out the phone, and turned it on. The screen lit up. One single message appeared. A message that made Sandra cover her mouth in disbelief. Keanu saw her shaking hands. He whispered, "What happened?" She looked at him with pale fear spreading across her face. And with a trembling voice, she finally said the words that shattered the moment completely. A single message can force a person to face buried truth instantly. When fear rises too fast, the heart reveals what it hides. Some news arrives like a silent earthquake, shaking every step forward. Sandra stood motionless in the bright terminal light, her phone trembling in her hand as the message displayed across the screen burned into her thoughts with overwhelming force. Keanu watched her carefully, unable to read her expression. Her assistant stared as well, confused and anxious. The entire moment grew heavy with dread as Sandra struggled to breathe. The message came from her brother, someone who rarely contacted her unless something significant happened. She unlocked the phone with shaking fingers and whispered, "It is from him," in a voice barely strong enough to reach Keanu's ears. Keanu stepped a little closer, trying to steady her with his presence. "What does it say?" he asked gently, unwilling to pressure her but unable to hide his concern. She swallowed hard before reading. He said they found something in my medical tests." Her voice cracked as she continued. "He said I need to contact the doctor as soon as possible." Keanu froze, his face tightening with worry. The assistant looked down respectfully, giving her the space she needed. Sandra stared at the message again, as if reading it twice would dull the shock inside her chest. Her eyes burned, her breath shook, and she pressed her free hand against her stomach to stop herself from collapsing. Keanu leaned closer. "Were you waiting for test results?" he asked softly. She nodded slowly. "I had some scans done last week after feeling exhausted for months," she said. "I thought it was stress or pressure. The doctor suggested tests to be safe. I thought it was nothing serious." Keanu felt something heavy settle in his chest. "Has anyone told you the results before this?" he asked. "No," she whispered. "This is the first message." Her pulse raced with fear. She felt the world around her blur. She had prepared to leave the city to find clarity about her emotions, but she had not prepared to face something that could change her future completely. The assistant took a slow step back. "I can call your doctor for you if you prefer," he offered gently. Sandra shook her head. "Not here," she whispered. "I cannot breathe right now." Keanu reached out subtly, not grabbing her but offering his presence with gentle purpose. "Sandra," he whispered, "you do not have to go through this alone." She closed her eyes as tears pressed forward. "I was leaving to fix my heart," she said quietly. "I was not ready to face something like this." Keanu felt a painful ache as he listened. He lowered his voice to something steady and warm. "Then let me stay with you," he said. "Let me help you face whatever this is." She looked up at him slowly, tears building behind her eyes. She saw no judgment, no panic, no pressure, only care, only sincerity, only the calm strength she once leaned on before fear pushed her away. The gate agent suddenly announced the final closure. The metal barrier shifted as the flight staff began to lock the doors. Sandra turned her head slowly toward the gate. Only a few steps separated her from leaving everything behind, yet everything inside her felt impossible to carry alone. Keanu watched her closely. She felt the weight of his gaze. She felt the conflict twisting her breath. She looked back at her phone again, then at her suitcase, then at Keanu. He whispered, "Whatever this message means, you should not face it alone. Not today." Her assistant added gently, "You can fly later, your health must come first." Sandra exhaled shakily, her chest rising and falling with deep unease. She felt something inside her shift. Her plan to escape suddenly felt fragile and senseless. Her emotions, once tangled in confusion about Keanu, were now tangled in fear about her future. She whispered, "I am scared." Keanu nodded once. "I know," he said, "but I am here, and I am not going anywhere unless you tell me to." Her tears finally fell. The gate closed behind them with a loud click. For the first time since she arrived at the airport, she let go of her suitcase handle. The small act felt symbolic. It felt like she was releasing the plan she fought so hard to hold onto. She let her hand fall to her side as she looked directly into Keanu's eyes. "I cannot do this alone," she whispered. Keanu nodded slowly. "Then you will not," he said. The assistant stepped forward again. "I can take care of the flight cancellation. Do not worry about anything else tonight." Sandra barely reacted. She only focused on Keanu, who stepped closer with calm confidence. He placed a gentle hand just above her elbow, not gripping her, but steadying her enough to help her breathe again. "Let us go somewhere quieter," he said. "Then you can call your doctor." She nodded weakly. Keanu picked up her suitcase for her. She did not fight him. They walked together through the terminal, moving away from the noise and the rushing crowds. He kept close enough to guide her, but not close enough to overwhelm her. His balance of care and respect wrapped around her like a warm blanket. They exited through the main doors, stepping into the cool night breeze. Sandra inhaled deeply, trying to steady her breath. Keanu placed the suitcase near a bench and guided her to sit. She sat down slowly, her entire body trembling. He crouched in front of her so she would not feel towered over. "We can call together," he said. "I will sit right here." She nodded. "Okay," she whispered. She dialed the clinic number with shaky fingers. Keanu stayed still, his expression calm but concerned. After a long moment, the doctor answered, recognizing her immediately. "Sandra, thank you for calling back quickly," he said through the phone. "I wanted to speak with you as soon as possible." Her heart pounded. "I just got the message," she said softly. "Is everything all right?" The doctor did not respond quickly. The silence stretched painfully. "We found something in your blood work and scans," he said finally. "It is not an emergency right now, but it requires immediate follow-up." Sandra pressed her hand against her forehead. "What does that mean?" she whispered. "It means we need more tests," the doctor replied gently. "There are signs that need careful investigation. It could be nothing serious, but it could also be something that needs treatment." Keanu closed his eyes briefly, fighting the urge to reach for her hand. He kept his position steady, grounding her by his presence. Sandra said quietly, "Should I come tomorrow?" "Yes," the doctor replied. "The sooner the better." She nodded slowly. "All right, thank you." She hung up and lowered the phone to her lap. Her entire body felt cold. She did not cry again, but her eyes looked distant, frightened, and exhausted. Keanu rose from his crouched position and sat beside her, leaving only a few inches of space between them. "It might not be serious," he said in a soft voice. Sandra nodded but did not speak. He continued, "But even if it is something difficult, you will not face it alone." She looked up at him sharply, her eyes watering. "Why are you always like this?" she asked in a trembling voice. He tilted his head slightly. "Like what?" "So calm," she whispered. "So strong, so gentle, even when things are breaking." He gave her a small, heartbreaking smile. Because someone has to be steady when the other person feels lost. Her breath caught. She looked away quickly, overwhelmed by the sincerity she had tried to escape. "I left because I felt invisible," she whispered. "But right now, I feel seen in a way that scares me." Keanu looked down, his voice growing even softer. "I never wanted you to feel invisible. I was trying to protect something fragile inside me, and I ended up hurting the person who mattered most." Her chest tightened. "I wish you had told me," she said. "I should have," he replied, "but I am telling you now." She turned her face toward him again. "What are you telling me?" Keanu inhaled slowly, his eyes holding hers with quiet intensity. "That I care about you more than I showed," he said. "That I never wanted distance. I only wanted to avoid hurting you, but in trying to protect you from pressure, I created silence, and that silence pushed you away." A tear rolled down her cheek. She did not wipe it. She whispered, "I felt like you did not need me." He shook his head gently. "I needed you too much, that was the problem." His confession hit her heart with force. She stared at him in disbelief, trying to understand how two people could misunderstand each other so deeply. Keanu leaned closer, his voice steady and warm. "Do not walk away because of miscommunication. Stay because we can understand these fears together." Her lips trembled. She whispered, "I do not know if I am strong enough for this." Keanu replied, "I will carry the weight with you." A long silence followed. The airport lights flickered across the pavement, creating soft reflections around them. Sandra stared at the ground while trying to calm her racing thoughts. Everything felt too big, too heavy, too uncertain. Yet Keanu's steady presence gave her peace she had not felt in months. After several long minutes, she whispered, "Will you walk me to your car?" Keanu nodded with relief so quiet she almost missed it. "Of course," he said. He stood and offered her his hand. She hesitated for only a second before taking it. His fingers wrapped around hers gently, not tightly, but with enough strength to support her. They walked through the parking area in silence, feeling the night air settle around them. Sandra leaned slightly toward him as if her body wanted the comfort she had been denying herself. Keanu did not pull away. He walked with steady steps, guiding her with careful attention. When they reached his car, he placed her suitcase in the trunk and opened the passenger door. She sat down slowly as he closed the door with gentle care. Then he walked around to the driver's side and got in. They sat in silence for a moment. Sandra whispered, "Thank you." Keanu looked at her with soft eyes. "You never need to thank me for being here." Her heart tightened again. She wanted to speak. She wanted to say something meaningful, something honest, something deep. She opened her mouth to speak. But before she could say a single word, a car suddenly pulled up behind them. A figure stepped out. A figure both of them recognized instantly. And the shock of who it was made Sandra's breath disappear completely. Unexpected arrivals can open hidden truth a heart is not ready to face. Sometimes a familiar voice interrupts the moment before clarity forms fully. Certain returns force people to confront emotions they kept buried deeply. The night air around the airport parking area felt charged as the unfamiliar car pulled up behind them. The headlights flooded across the pavement, casting long shadows that stretched toward Keanu's car. Sandra stiffened instantly, her breath trapped in her throat. Keanu felt her tense beside him, and he turned to look through the rear window. A tall figure stepped into view. The moment the door closed behind him, Sandra recognized him. It was Mark, a longtime friend from her past, someone who drifted out of her life years ago but always reappeared at the most complicated moments. He had been close to her family for a long time, especially her brother, and their friendship had once carried a quiet emotional history that neither ever fully explored or defined. His sudden arrival was not random. It never was. Keanu sat still. His face remained calm, but his chest tightened with instinctive concern. He glanced at Sandra gently. Her expression revealed panic mixed with confusion. Keanu did not speak. He waited for her to find her breath. Mark walked toward the car with determined steps. He stopped beside the open space near the passenger window and looked at Sandra through the glass. His voice was gentle but urgent. I have been trying to reach you, he said. Your brother told me you were here. Sandra opened the door slowly, not stepping out yet. Her voice trembled as she asked, "Why did you come?" Mark glanced briefly at Keanu, then back at her. "Because I was worried," he said. "Your brother told me about the message. He said you might be alone. I could not ignore that." Keanu remained silent, choosing not to interrupt her moment with someone who clearly mattered to her. He leaned back in his seat, but his gaze stayed warm and respectful. Sandra wiped a tear that slipped down her cheek. "I was not alone," she whispered. Mark looked at Keanu again, this time with more understanding. "I see that now," he said. Keanu nodded politely, but did not say anything, giving Sandra space. Mark turned back to her. "I just wanted to make sure you were all right," he said. "You did not answer your messages, your phone was off. I thought something might have happened." Sandra shook her head slightly. "I needed a moment to breathe," she said. Everything felt overwhelming. Mark stepped closer, his expression filled with concern. "Your brother asked me to bring you home," he said. "He said he did not want you driving alone after what he told you." Keanu remained still, although he felt a small ache forming inside. He knew this moment was not about jealousy or competition. This was about Sandra's fear, her health, her family, her heart. Sandra exhaled deeply. "I am not going home right now," she said softly. "I need to think." Mark frowned gently. "You can think at home," he said. "You should be with your family now. They are worried about you." Her chest tightened. "I know," she whispered, "but I am not ready to face them yet. I need time to understand what this means." Mark softened his voice. "Then let me take you somewhere safe." Keanu sensed her internal conflict growing stronger. He decided to speak, but only with kindness. "She is safe here," he said quietly. "I will take care of her tonight." Mark looked at him long and steady. "I am not doubting you," he said. "I just want to help." Sandra looked at both of them, her emotions swinging between fear, exhaustion, and confusion. She pressed her palm against her forehead. "Please," she whispered, "do not make me choose between you." The words hung between the three of them like a heavy cloud. Keanu lowered his eyes respectfully, not wanting to pressure her. Mark stepped back a little, sensing her distress. "I am not here to compete," he said. "I am here because I care." The sincerity in his voice shook her even more. She closed her eyes tightly for a moment, trying to gather her scattered thoughts. Keanu spoke gently. "What do you want to do right now?" he asked. "Not what I want, not what Mark wants, what you need." She looked at him with trembling eyes. "I need to breathe," she whispered. "I need quiet. I need to sit somewhere without feeling watched or pulled." Keanu nodded slowly. "Then we will drive somewhere quiet," he said softly, "and we will sit and we will breathe." Mark frowned slightly. "Alone?" he asked carefully. Keanu remained calm. "If she chooses that," he said, "yes." Sandra looked between the two men again, torn between familiar comfort and fragile new clarity. She whispered, "I want Keanu to drive me somewhere quiet." The decision hit Mark visibly. He swallowed gently. "All right," he said, trying not to show hurt. "I understand." Sandra's voice softened. "It does not mean I do not value you," she said. "You have always been important to me." Mark nodded. "I know," he replied. But pain flickered behind his eyes, pain he tried hard to hide. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Before you go," he said, "I need to tell you something. It is about the results." Sandra's breath stilled. "What do you mean?" she asked. Mark hesitated. "Your brother received another message after the first one. He was trying to call you again. He tried calling me too. He said the doctor needs to speak with you tomorrow morning because they found something specific." Sandra's face went pale. "Specific," she whispered. "What do you mean by specific?" Mark inhaled deeply. He did not say clearly. He only said the doctor wants to check something related to old symptoms you had years ago. Her heartbeat raced with panic. "Which symptoms?" she asked. Mark looked down. "The ones you never fully treated." Sandra pressed her hand against her mouth, her eyes filling again. The weight of fear pulled her shoulders inward. Keanu immediately reached out, placing a steadying hand on her arm. She looked at him, her eyes begging for stability. Keanu whispered, "We will go tomorrow. I will take you myself." She nodded weakly. Mark continued gently, "Your brother asked me to stay close tonight in case you needed help, but I can see you already have someone taking care of you." His words carried emotion he tried to hide. Sandra reached out and touched his arm lightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "Please tell my brother I will call him." Mark nodded. "I will," he said softly. There was a long moment of silence that carried unresolved history and emotional weight. Then Mark stepped back, giving space while maintaining dignity. "If you need anything," he said quietly, "call me, anytime." Sandra nodded. "I will," she whispered. Mark forced a small smile and stepped back toward his car. He watched her for a second longer before finally turning away. The car door closed gently, and he drove off into the night. Once his car disappeared from sight, Sandra sagged slightly, overwhelmed by everything pressing down on her chest. Keanu leaned closer and whispered, "Are you all right?" She let out a shaky breath. "I do not know," she said. "Everything feels too heavy." Keanu nodded, "Then let us carry it slowly." He started the car, and they drove away from the airport. The night air felt colder now, brushing against the windows as the silence between them settled into something deep and complex. Keanu did not rush the conversation. He simply drove with calm care, giving her space to breathe. After a few minutes, she whispered, "I did not expect Mark to come." Keanu replied in a soft tone, "He cares about you." She nodded faintly. "Yes," she said, "but his timing always appears when I am the most confused." Keanu glanced at her briefly, his expression gentle. "Does his presence change anything between us?" he asked quietly. She shook her head immediately. "No," she whispered. "It only reminded me how much pressure I have been carrying alone." Keanu exhaled slowly. "I do not want you alone anymore," he said. "Not with fear, not with confusion, not with any of this." Her eyes softened, filled with quiet emotion. "You have always been calm with me," she said, "even when my thoughts feel impossible." Keanu smiled gently. "That is because you are not impossible," he said. "You are human and scared and overwhelmed and still strong even when you think you are not." Her throat tightened. She looked out the window, unable to stop the tears forming again. After several minutes, Keanu pulled into a quiet overlook outside the city. The view stretched across distant lights scattered like fallen stars. The place felt calm, peaceful, safe. He turned off the engine. Silence settled around them like a soft blanket. Sandra whispered, "Why did you bring me here?" He looked at her with soft eyes. "Because you said you needed quiet, and this is where I come when I need to think." She stared at the view, her chest still racing with fear. "It is beautiful," she said softly. "Yes," he replied, "but you are shaking." She let out a trembling breath. "I am terrified." Keanu's voice lowered, filled with steady tenderness. "Tell me what scares you the most." She closed her eyes, her voice breaking. "I am scared the results will change my whole life," she said. "I am scared I will not be strong enough. I am scared I waited too long. I am scared this will hurt the people I care about." He nodded slowly. "And me?" he asked softly. She looked up sharply. "What about you?" "Are you scared of hurting me too?" he asked. Her eyes filled again. "Yes," she whispered, "maybe most of all." Keanu inhaled slowly, choosing his words carefully. "You do not have to protect me from your fear," he said. "I would rather stand with you than be kept outside your world." She shook her head, overwhelmed. "I do not want to drag you into something dark." "Sandra," he whispered, "you are not dragging me anywhere. I am walking to you because I want to, because you matter." Her breath caught painfully. "Why now?" she whispered. "Why say these things after months of silence?" He leaned closer, his voice trembling despite its strength. "Because watching you walk toward that gate made me realize something I tried to hide even from myself. I cannot lose you, not like that, not without telling you the truth." Her heartbeat quickened. "What truth?" she asked. Keanu held her gaze with deep, vulnerable honesty. "That I love you more than I ever said," he whispered, "and I am done pretending I do not." Sandra's entire body froze. Her lips parted. Her breath stopped. The night around them fell completely silent. But before she could process his confession, before she could speak, before she could breathe, her phone lit up again. Another message. This time from the doctor. Keanu saw her face drain of all color. Sandra's hands shook violently as she lifted the phone. She clicked the message. Her eyes widened. Her lips trembled. Keanu reached out instinctively. "Sandra," he whispered, "what did he say?" She looked at him with absolute fear. And then she whispered words that made Keanu's entire world tilt. The truth arrives quickly when a heart is not prepared for change. Fear grows louder when answers appear before the mind is ready. Some messages become turning points that shape the entire future. Sandra stared at her glowing phone screen, her hands trembling so intensely that she could barely hold the device steady. Keanu leaned toward her with gentle urgency, trying not to touch her without permission, but unable to hide the fear growing in his chest. The look on her face told him the message was important, possibly life-changing, possibly devastating. Her throat tightened as she tried to breathe. "The doctor said he reviewed the scans again," she whispered. "He said something showed up that he cannot ignore. He wants me at the clinic early tomorrow. He said he does not want me traveling for a while." Keanu felt a cold wave pass through his body. He quietly asked, "Did he say what he found?" She swallowed hard. "No," she said. "He said he needs to explain it in person." Her fingers tightened around the phone as her breath grew uneven. "Keanu," she whispered, "what if it is something serious?" He finally reached for her hands, taking them gently into his own. His grip was warm and steady. "Whatever it is," he said softly, "we will face it together." Her tears fell instantly. She leaned forward and pressed her forehead into his shoulder, sobbing quietly, letting all the fear she had carried for weeks break open. Keanu wrapped his arms around her carefully, holding her with equal parts strength and tenderness. He closed his eyes, hoping his warmth might steady her trembling body. She cried into his jacket while he rubbed her back slowly, his voice whispering soothing words. "You are not alone. You will never be alone in this. Breathe with me. I am right here." She clung to him tightly, feeling the safety she had been longing for. After a long moment, she pulled back slightly, wiping her tears with shaking hands. "I am sorry," she whispered. "I keep breaking down. I feel like everything inside me is falling apart." Keanu shook his head. "You do not need to apologize for being scared," he said gently. "Fear does not make you weak. Fear means you are fighting." She looked at him with grateful but frightened eyes. "What if I cannot fight this?" she asked quietly. He held her gaze with steady strength. "Then I will fight beside you," he said. "I will walk with you through every step. I promise you that." Her breath caught again, but this time not from fear, from warmth, from hope, from the faint return of trust she had buried under months of silence and confusion. She whispered, "I left because I felt alone." "I know," he said softly, "and I am sorry. I should have spoken sooner. I should have told you what you meant to me." She lowered her eyes. "Why did you not?" He inhaled slowly. "Because caring deeply is easy," he said, "but admitting it is terrifying when you think the other person might not feel the same." Her eyebrows lifted. "So you were scared of me?" Keanu smiled gently. "I was scared of losing you," he said. "So I kept quiet, but silence only pushed you away. I see that now." Sandra blinked back tears. "I wish you told me sooner," she said. "I wish I did too," he replied. The city lights reflected across their faces in soft glimmers. The night breeze brushed through Sandra's hair. For a long moment, they just sat quietly, breathing the same air, feeling the weight of everything they had avoided for far too long. Sandra finally whispered, "What you said earlier, did you mean it?" Keanu's voice softened even more. "I meant every word." "That you love me?" she asked softly. Keanu nodded slowly. "Yes," he said, "I love you, and I am done hiding it." Her eyes glistened, her lips trembling in a way that carried both surprise and deep emotion. She turned her head away for a moment, overwhelmed by feelings she had forced herself to ignore. Keanu waited in silence, giving her space to breathe. After several quiet seconds, she whispered, "I love you too." Her voice shook as she said it, but there was no doubt. Keanu felt something inside him break open in the most gentle way possible. Relief washed through him like warm sunlight breaking through clouds. He reached for her hand again, and she let him hold it without hesitation. "Then do not run from me," he whispered. "Not now, not when you need someone beside you." She nodded slowly. "I will not run anymore," she said. "I promise." Keanu exhaled deeply, the tension in his shoulders finally easing. He kept one hand on hers and reached with the other to tuck a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "We will face tomorrow together," he said. She leaned into his palm for a moment, finding comfort in the simple touch. The moonlight cast a soft glow over the quiet hilltop where they sat. The city's distant lights flickered like small promises of hope. Sandra rested her head on Keanu's shoulder, feeling safe for the first time in weeks. He wrapped his arm around her and held her close, allowing the silence to cradle them. After a while, she asked softly, "What if the doctor gives bad news?" Keanu responded without hesitation. "Then I will be there in the room with you," he said. "I will listen with you. I will support you. I will help you find the right treatment. We will not let fear decide the future." She closed her eyes, letting his words settle into her heart. "And if the news is good," she said. Keanu smiled gently. "Then we will take the gift and celebrate every moment together." She let out a soft, shaky laugh. "You make everything sound easier than it feels." "That is because I believe in you," he replied, "and I believe in us." She turned her face toward him. "Do we have an us now?" she asked quietly. Keanu held her gaze. "Only if you want one," he said. She nodded softly. "I do," she whispered. He squeezed her hand. "Then yes," he said, "we have an us." Tears of relief filled her eyes again, but this time they were warm instead of cold. She wrapped her arms around him and held on tightly. He hugged her back, pressing his cheek against her hair, letting her feel every bit of the comfort he offered. They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped in a shared quiet that no longer felt painful. The night slowly softened around them, making the world feel gentler. Finally, Sandra whispered, "Can we go home?" Keanu nodded. "Yes," he said, "I will take you anywhere you need." He walked her to the passenger side, opened the door, and waited until she felt steady enough to sit. He closed the door softly, then went around to the driver's side. As he drove, she rested her head against the window, watching the quiet roads pass beneath the streetlights. Keanu kept glancing at her, his expression soft with worry and love. After a few minutes, Sandra spoke. "Thank you for finding me," she said. "Thank you for running after me." He shook his head. "I did not run after you," he said softly. "I ran toward you." Her heart warmed. They drove in peaceful silence until they reached her house. Keanu parked outside and turned off the engine. Sandra unbuckled her seat belt but did not open the door immediately. Keanu spoke first. "I will come inside if you want company." She nodded. "I want that," she whispered. They walked inside together, and Sandra immediately sat on the couch. Keanu brought her a glass of water and sat beside her. She leaned against him again, feeling safe in a way she had not felt in a long time. After a quiet moment, she whispered, "Promise you will be with me tomorrow." Keanu looked at her with steady conviction. "I promise," he said, "I will be with you through everything." She closed her eyes, breathing slowly, letting his promise settle deeply. Keanu placed a gentle kiss on the top of her head. She held his hand tightly and whispered, "I feel safe." He whispered back, "You are safe." The night slowly faded into calm silence as they sat together, united by truth, strengthened by vulnerability, and finally free from the distance that once kept them apart. Tomorrow would bring answers. Tomorrow might bring fear. Tomorrow might bring relief. But they would face tomorrow together. For the first time in months, Sandra felt hope rising inside her chest. And for the first time in years, Keanu felt like he finally held something he was ready to protect with everything inside him. The story ended not with perfect certainty, but with courage. Not with fear, but with connection. Not with goodbye, but with a beginning.